There's so many different stories.
What are you going to do?
I'm not doing that.
We're not involved in them.
I
was never at Diddy's party. I don't even know the motherfucker.
We're out
I
here
don't want to know nobody.
telling jokes. Telling jokes.
Like I told you.
Having fun.
That's it.
Yeah.
Smoking, cracking jokes, making people...
That's
everything
it.
else is background music. I just want to do stand-up.
What a twisted web some folks weave.
So the latest episode of JRE features Joey Diaz. He's appeared on the podcast over 60 times, dating way back to 2010 when he made his first appearance on episode 25. He's obviously close friends with Joe Rogan. They originally met at the Comedy Store back in the 90s, and he truly is a unique character in the whole Rogan universe, right? Stand-up comedy tends to attract some pretty strange cats, and Joey Diaz is no exception. He immigrated to the US from Cuba with his parents. His dad passed away when he was 3 years old, and then his mum died as well when he was only 16. So it's no secret that he got up to no good as a teenager and then as a young adult. He eventually got arrested for kidnapping and aggravated robbery, and he went to prison on a 4-year sentence but was released after serving only 16 months. And it was actually in prison where he discovered stand-up comedy. Whenever the screen projector wasn't working during movie nights, he would perform stand-up routines for all the inmates. Even still, though, it would take him a few years more to build the courage to actually go and do stand-up in a club and pursue it as a career.
America's f***ing beautiful, man. Where else can a felon with 2 strikes? I got 2 strikes. My next strike is life. Right? They give you like 20 years if you have 3 strikes. I told him, suck my dick. Even when the feds were looking for me in 99 for that gun, I wasn't copping. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know, man. I'm not doing it. This is the path I'm taking. I don't know what, and I never got in trouble again, Joe. Never.
So then it wasn't until the early 90s that he would really get into stand-up comedy and slowly build a name for himself over the following 20 years. It wouldn't be until 2016, though, that he would release his first comedy special called Socially Unacceptable. But it was back in the 90s that he would meet Joe Rogan and become very close friends with him. Rogan often comments that Joey's the funniest guy he knows. He absolutely loves him, which has definitely helped to put Joey on the map, especially with all his appearances on JRE. And so on the latest episode, he recalled how the comedy scene pretty much saved his life. He was stuck in a life of crime, he had addiction problems, and just generally lacked purpose and direction.
You know, comedy became, you need something to get you out of there.
Yes.
When you're at the store with guys working the door, getting, how much were we getting? $25 a shift. She was paying me $25 on Sunday nights to work the door and $25 to MC. But you fall in love with what you're doing.
Yeah. And you know there's a path.
And there's a path. And when you start seeing other people rise, and you're stuck as a f***ing addict, you're f***ing stuck. You don't know when to stop. I was stuck as an addict, and I got to being stuck as a fat dude. 418, 420. My wife was tying my shoelaces. You know how embarrassing that f***ing is?
Wow.
You know how f***ing embarrassing that is, looking back at it now? People coming to visit you in jail. That's bullshit life, man.
Yeah.
There's so much out there, Joe. There's so and now that's what I'm trying to sell to my daughter. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be until 2007 that he would kick his coke habit completely. It had pretty much controlled his life up until that point. He got divorced from his first wife in 91 and lost his relationship with his daughter as a result. But then he remarried in 2009 and had another daughter who he seems to put a lot of effort into, making sure he calls her when he's on the road, he picks her up from school, helps her with homework and all that warm and fuzzy stuff. So he's definitely turned his life around from all the crime and drugs that he grew up with. But over and above all, he credits his comedy family for providing the backbone to lift himself out of that life and make something of himself.
Family is family. Comedy family is comedy family.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what these motherfuckers will never, ever understand.
The people that don't get it will not get that because they haven't experienced it. But we're lucky.
To cheer for each other.
Yeah.
And that's what being a comic is about, is also fucking giving love to these people and going, you know what, you're doing good, man.
Yeah.
And just like Rogan, he takes pride in giving back to the comedy community. Rogan himself is in legacy mode with his comedy club in Austin. He's credited with reviving stand-up comedy in the United States and giving it a whole new look away from LA and New York, which has become dominated by the elites and suits from large corporations calling all the shots. Now the comedy scene is a lot more democratic. Rogan's all about pushing the funniest people that come across his radar. He's got no agenda. He just wants to help the funniest comics find an audience. Here's the thing, though. Just let me show you.
She's lucky she paid $100. I had girls sucking my dick and giving me coke from Chewy. You think I'm fucking kidding you? Fuck yeah, you gotta suck my dick to get up in the belly room. I'll make a call for you. That's the fucking gateway into coming to Hollywood. Everybody knows that.
How many girls did you have do that?
Oh, 20 of them. I had this little blonde open mic chick dog that used to come up to the Comedy Store with a 20 and just take me up to the belly room and suck my dick and go do her set. She was tremendous.
Wow.
She finally freaked out. When she got to Hollywood, bro, she was beautiful. And when she left, she had dirty her nails were dirty. And then a year later, she wrote me a letter to the Comedy Store. You sucker, you broke me. I kept shooting sperm balls in her fucking ear bar. Every time she went down, vaya pa la pinga.
So if you weren't able to follow there, this was way back in 2011, less than 2 years after the first JRE episode went live. And Joey Diaz was telling Joe Rogan and his producer at the time, Brian Redban, who's now part of Kill Tony, about how he used to coerce young female comics into performing favors for him, and in turn he would give them access to the Belly Room, which is part of the Comedy Store in LA, through some of his contacts. He also said that one female comic in particular would later write to him complaining that he broke her after getting washed up and spat out by Hollywood years later. Now, that's obviously a clip that most Joey Diaz fans will find difficult to watch and would perhaps prefer to forget about, but unfortunately things get worse. You see, for some reason, Joey has a fascination with predators and predatory behaviour, and he likes to discuss it openly on podcasts. Back in 2020, he was on JRE, he was explaining to Rogan how dirty the LA scene is, how corrupt it's become, and as more and more information comes out about the things that have been going on there over the years, the picture has become clearer. And he brought up a specific example of just how rotten LA is, except what he describes is almost exactly what he confessed to just 9 years earlier on the exact same podcast.
It's just disgusting people out here.
Yeah.
This is, between the Big Rom documentary, did you see that one?
I didn't see that.
That filthy fucking animal getting women to suck that fucking 90-degree weather, 6 yoga session. That's just cruelty to animals. You could put you in jail for just sucking that dick. Harvey, all that shit happens here.
So like I said, Joey seems to have this deep fascination with predatory behavior, even after admitting that he himself engaged in similar behavior with over 20 women during the 90s and early 2000s. He even went into detail on JRE back in 2018, giving Harvey Weinstein strategic advice on how to get off his charges based off what he would do in the same situation. And what I found so interesting about all of this is how he automatically identified with Harvey Weinstein. Rogan actually asks him why he thinks Weinstein would do this, and Joey basically explains that it goes back to his own experiences living around criminals and being one himself.
It's very interesting where this Harvey Weinstein case is going to go. Right now, he has Benjamin Braff as an attorney. And if you see what happened, Benjamin Braff pushed for a dismissal, and he didn't get it. The lawyer said, the judge said a trial date. Harvey Weinstein's going to go throw more money to pay off time. Harvey's going to go for time. Then he's going to fire Benjamin Braff and show up with 2 women, primarily 1 black and 1 Asian, or 1 white and 1 Asian. And this is when this trial is going to get very interesting.
How do you know he's going to do all this stuff?
Because I know this is what I would do. I know if you come to me and you go, I'm getting busted for this, what do I do? Because of how I grew up around those people, this is what you do. So I'm going to go in there with either a black woman, an Asian woman, or a white woman. My first 2 choices are a black and an Asian woman.
You want to get the diversity
I
angle?
want to get the diversity angle, and I want to get that you're saying that because you're a black woman, Chinese woman. What I'm trying to stare at. Did you ever really watch The People versus O.J. Simpson?
No, I didn't.
Very interesting.
But it's funny how Joe Rogan, on the other hand, is so disgusted by guys like Harvey Weinstein, even after laughing uncontrollably at his buddy Joey Diaz's open confession years before. So let me just clarify something before I move on and show you this next clip. I'm not suggesting that Joey Diaz is the same type of person as Harvey Weinstein. I'm only going off his own words from 2011, which I'll discuss in more detail towards the end. But the point of showing you this is to point out the hypocrisy of somebody as powerful as Joe Rogan, who laughs off his own friend's predatory behavior, but then clutches his pearls at how someone like Harvey Weinstein was able to get away with his actions for so many years without so much as a whisper.
And
How
get
many
away
years
with it
is
for
he
so long.
doing?
20-something years.
Is it?
Nobody
Yeah.
would do that.
20-something years.
Yeah.
And might be more, right? They got cases
Well, there's way
in
more
LA.
cases. Yeah, there's way more cases. This is just what he's been convicted for.
Right.
I mean, he apparently was behaving like that for decades.
So
and
you're telling me
decades.
nobody knew?
They knew. They all knew. That's what's crazy is it's worked into his fucking contract.
It's amazing.
It's
But you know what else?
They're all complicit. And there's a thing called diffusion of responsibility where there's too many people involved. You don't feel like you're responsible. You don't feel like you know, that's what when they say it's easier to assault someone in front of 100 people than it is to assault someone in front of one person.
Yeah.
Because one person might step in and stop it, but 100 people will sit around and go, someone's got to stop this.
Gotcha. You know,
I think, from what I understand,
I don't
part
think
of
he
it.
needed
I
to
think
do
that's part
this.
of it.
I think
I
it's
think-
his ego, and
I think that's too.
like
I
Bill
think that's it,
Cosby
too.
was the same thing.
Yes. It becomes a pathology, and I think there's also a thing about power. You know, it's a power thing to have power over people.
Sure.
For me, this is where Rogan starts to fall apart. He's happy to provide a running commentary on Harvey Weinstein and all of his crimes. He's even brought up some disease that Weinstein has that led to deformities in his junk region. If you've ever heard him talk about it, you'll know what I mean. But my point is, as a basic concept where there's a guy in a position of power and young women who are impressionable and desperate for fame and attention, Rogan makes it clear exactly what his position is.
The casting couch in Hollywood, if you stop and think about it, right? You've got all these women that want to be in films, they want to be stars. Then you got these guys that can actually help them, make them stars, but they want something. And then you set up this dynamic that's existed since, the fucking 20s.
Imagine what it was like back then.
Oh, my God.
Jeez.
Well,
So is that not exactly what his buddy Joey Diaz confessed to, even bragged about on his very own podcast? Like, what am I missing here, right? Was Joey just doing a bit when he said all that stuff years ago? And if it was a bit, where was the funny part? See, this is what I'm sick of when it comes to Rogan and his circle jerk of comedy brain groupies. A lot of these guys made a name for themselves by calling out the establishment for putting up barriers in controlling access to their audiences. That's classically what Hollywood did, right? Rogan smashed that bubble into pieces and showed how you could go directly to your audience without all the middlemen and the suits clipping the ticket. And he brought his friends along for the ride. The problem is, as most of my regulars will know from my extensive coverage of the Rogan universe, these guys are no different to the establishment that they've replaced. And it's not about politics or culture wars or anything like that. It's about double standards when it comes to the new elites versus the old elites, covering up and ignoring their own behavior, while at the same time pointing out how bad guys like Diddy and R. Kelly and Harvey Weinstein are. The list goes on, right? We saw this with the Bobby Lee Tijuana story, and then all the times he went on morning talk shows and harassed the female hosts, and pretty much got away with it. Why? Because he's a comedian and it's just a bit, apparently. I guarantee you the same thing would happen with Joey Diaz. If he ever had to actually answer for what he alleges he did, he'd end up claiming that he was just doing a bit, it was for the camera, he was embellishing a story, and that's what he does, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, they'll sit there and tell us how bad Hollywood is and how the system breeds this sort of behavior when that's literally where they came from.
Yeah, you gotta stick my dick to get up in the belly room. I'll make a call for you. That's the fucking gateway into coming to Hollywood. Everybody knows that.
How many girls did you have do that?
Oh, 20 of them.
Cat Williams called it at the beginning of the year that there was going to be some pretty crazy revelations this year, and all this stuff was going to come out, and it's going to shock everyone. So far, it feels like he was right, and it seems people are becoming less and less willing to excuse this kind of behavior. And just remember, you can't use the excuse that these things happened years and years ago and therefore it doesn't matter. there are some limitations on civil actions, and a lot of what Harvey Weinstein did and Bill Cosby did, even the current investigation into P. Diddy, a lot of those things happened years ago and even decades ago. I mean, look what happened to Louis C.K. He got dropped from all of his sponsors, all his deals got cancelled, and compare what he admitted to doing to what Joey Diaz admitted to himself. I don't know, guys. I'm a fan of Joey Diaz just as much as the next guy. I think he's pretty funny on podcasts, but not so much on stage, which seems to be the way with most of Rogan's buddies. But we've got to be consistent with this stuff. Being funny isn't an excuse for being a predator. He's claiming he found the right path and he loves his comedy family and all of that. So why is he bragging about how he would use and abuse the very same comedy family when he was on his way up, to the point where he apparently broke some young comic? Anyway, that's my take on the whole Joey Diaz situation. Let me know in the comments below what you think about all of this, and if you're not a regular of this channel, hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.
That Zen f***ed me up before. That
Yeah.
12 milligrams, holy shit.
6. But yeah, you took it right after we ate, and you were like, "Ew."
No, I was eating. That's when I swallowed the first one at the restaurant. Because the Zins, is, when you take one, sometimes you take two.
Right, they stick together. Yeah, don't swallow them. That's my advice to you.
Well, I already swallowed like 6 of them, so it's too late.
Well, no more. Don't swallow anymore.
No, I won't swallow no more. But I got to get some more of these Zins, brother.
All right.